Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Trade the Chain. It is January, let me look at the date, 25th, and we are here with my co-host Ryan Gorman and our crypto analysts CJ and Monty from MarketRebellion.com. I hope everybody had a great, happy Monday morning. If you didn't see it, there was a nice little announcement on Voyager this morning that came out. So H.C. Wainwright and Company, a pretty decent sized middle market investment banking firm, initiated coverage on Voyager stock today. And I think they gave it a buy rating to $12 Canadian or so. But I mean, this is the big leagues. When you start getting investment banks covering your stock and you're a crypto company, I think you can plant your flag a little bit. So it was good news all around. We're definitely excited about it. There's only more to come. I will say we will be dropping a two-part, I guess, mini-series you'd call it, but 2 episodes. One we're trying to get out today, followed by another one the next day on the fundamental value of Voyager, the VGX token, tokenomics, and why you should be into this ticker this year. We also will, allude to what we think a price may be. Of course, don't listen to us, and that's why I take it over to Ryan now.
Just a reminder, everyone, that all information provided by Trade the Chain is strictly for informational and rather educational and entertainment purposes only. This is not investment advice and should not be construed as such. Trade the Chain is brought to you by Trade the Chain, a 24/7 global community of traders around the world, sharing ideas, sharing victories, and using AI-driven sentiment indicators and actionable alerts to help them beat the market. 14-day free trial at tradethechain.com.
Very impressed how much the community has grown. The Slack channel where everybody communicates for Trade the Chain is going 24/7 now with all the members in each one of your time zones.
20 time zones. Look at that. All over.
Quite a few, yeah. Like
a Bernie Sanders meme. We're all over. Sorry. Go ahead, CJ. I apologize.
MarketRebellion.com/crypto, your one-stop shop for crypto trading. Get access to exclusive trade ideas, our macro portfolio allocations, a pro charting platform, which I'll showcase today, a beginner to advanced crypto trading education curriculum, and an elite trading community of traders around the world with much, much more. If you're serious about trading crypto and investing in crypto, this is the service that gives you everything you need all in one place. Start your first month trial for just $1 at marketrebellion.com/crypto. So please check that out. We appreciate it. Especially if you're new to learning TA, we're dropping a lot of courses at the end of the month that are going to be very helpful for beginner technical and analysts. And of course, if you haven't subscribed already, please hit the like button. We really appreciate that. It helps us spread this information to as many as possible. But looking here at the 4-hour time frame, we can see that we do have a little bit of micro bullish activity here, consolidating above 30K here. We had a very bullish red 5 hammer candle that brought us up from the crypto abyss. Now we are, we created a nice higher low, but still there is immense resistance from this overall macro descending triangle that we're seeing. And we have yet to break above the downward sloping trend line of the descending triangle. So that's going to be a key level for the bears and the bulls to battle over. Now, something I want to show you guys from a sentiment perspective, and I talked about this last week, the psychology of a market cycle, euphoria, complacency, etc. Glassnode has actually come out with some data on this, stating that we're in a very similar period of between belief and euphoria in our current market cycle. And this, as you can see, has foreshadowed bearish price action in previous historic cycles. Doesn't mean it has to occur. These levels can stay overextended for a very long period of time, but I think it's pretty interesting to take note of where we are in the particular cycle. We go back to the weekly chart, we can see that we're still hovering below the top Bollinger Band. And, the honey hole remains below, and we will wait to get it. We also had news. We're going to get to this later, but I just want to say it real quick. We had the company Mara, ticker symbol Mara, buying a ton of Bitcoin today. So potential correlation play there, along with MicroStrategy, PayPal, Square, and some others. They're kind of joining the play. How I've positioned myself personally in the next couple of weeks, I own some February puts on Riot as of Friday. We'll see how that ends up as a hedge. Still leaning bearish neutral. Last thing I'll say before passing it off, what would change my mind and potentially get me out of a short into a bullish position would be a break above the previous lower high here. We need to break out of this descending trend line. Until we do that, the trend remains bearish neutral in my perspective.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, CJ, in that bearish neutral boat. And yeah, I think the one thing that would kind of validate a breakout would be maybe consolidation above that level of 37.48K. But I don't really see that happening anytime soon, and I expect this trend to continue. One thing that I get asked a lot is, if we just expect this bearish price action to continue, why not short Bitcoin, or why not sell all of my stack and buy in later if I'm so sure it's going to go down? And the thing about Bitcoin is the moves just happen so fast when they are bullish moves. And I think there's better ways to get downside exposure with a lot of the vehicles that CJ just mentioned. So, I mean, these companies like Mara are doubling down on their correlation to Bitcoin. You have MicroStrategy accumulating even more Bitcoin. So when the times are good, these companies are going to perform well. And we've seen that all throughout the year. But now that Bitcoin is starting to kind of consolidate and slow down, I think these companies are going to be the first to be affected by the bearish price action. So I think that's a great way to get exposure to kind of the downside of this market while holding on to your stack at the same time.
And these companies are way more overbought than Bitcoin. Riot blockchain started at around $3. It's at, I think, 20 now. Yeah. Riot's at 19, so it broke just below 20. But that is a incredible run up in a percentage terms when compared to Bitcoin. So potential more downside price action. And a lot of times when you try to short Bitcoin, a lot of people get stopped out if they use leverage. So a nice thing that you can do is buy a put because, you know, it's a great way to hedge. Not financial advice, just what I'm doing personally.
It's fun to look back at, you know, last week. Not fun, I guess. I mean, after I got attacked by that bug, but you know, Bitcoin's performance last week was its worst in 5 months, and it only dropped just a shade under 10%, right? And if you look back to March, where the drop was more significant on a percentage basis, in absolute dollar terms, it was significantly less than last week. And last week, everyone was decrying Bitcoin dead once again. Kraken was quoted this morning in CoinDesk saying that every time Bitcoin hit 30K, which is where that support level seems to be, there was significant buying interest. Where do you think that buying interest is coming from? Do you think Marathon is buying on Kraken, or who else is doing so?
Yeah, that's kind of the $1 million question here. I think it is the institutions. I mean, we've talked about how the whale addresses with more than 1,000 Bitcoin are kind of continuing to increase when price dips down below 30K. So I think institutions are content in buying Bitcoin at this point at around 30K. And I'm not sure if that's just like a result of them being willing to stomach the loss, but I don't think we're going to dip too much further. We only on the 4-hour chart that CJ was showing, we were in that below 20 or below 30K for less than like 30 minutes. So it seems like there is really high demand for Bitcoin below this level. And I think that could be largely the result of institutional interest at this price point.
I also think that we're starting to average up institutional price points, you know. So if we go back just a month ago, a couple of months ago, we could say, hey, listen, we have a lot of institutions that are in the space at around, you know, let's call it 14 to 18,000, you know, starting with like MicroStrategies back in the fall. But then now we're raising that average basis buy-in, and we're going to have a lot of institutions sitting with a price point in now from 20 to 30K. So I think that it's going to bring a lot of support there because of the amount of interest. I really, as the institutional interest keeps going up around the 30s and more higher and stuff like that, particularly with the hedge funds. I think Guggenheim's mandate goes live February 1st for Bitcoin buying into the funds. When this happens, that price is going to be above the 30 range. I think it's going to be much harder for Bitcoin to retrace lower and lower every time we keep raising that basis price up.
And that was something I wanted to touch on, Alex, actually. That's a very good point, right? Because individuals who may or may not be on the fence about getting into Bitcoin right now, they're wondering, am I going to see levels we saw last year? Will I be able to afford a whole Bitcoin at, say, 8K, 9K? I don't think that's realistic anymore. Am I alone on this? Am I kind of out on my own here? Or do you guys think that is reasonably accurate?
I'll tell you until CJ and Monty pointed out what I perceived as the bottoming out last week on Friday's episode of the retraction we were having, Ryan. I honestly thought there was a very good chance we could go down to 22, possibly even 19 on a bad day. But I mean, my feeling, I don't know how the rest of the gents feel. I don't think that's ever going to be plausible again.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. I mean, at the very most extreme, maybe 20K, like consolidating back down towards like the previous all-time high. But there's just so much demand for Bitcoin at any price below 30K. And we've kind of seen that in the last few weeks as it served as a perfect price floor. And yeah, I personally would jump on Bitcoin at 25K, but it all depends on kind of the momentum of the chart at that time. And if it's like where the weekly chart is at, where the Bollinger Band is at, and what point we are at the correction. The longer we hover at this point, the more time we give the Bollinger Band to kind of get up to this current price. And I think it kind of makes it less likely that we're going to correct significantly.
Yeah, I also think there's a lot of other variables going on right now too. You have hedge funds coming in. You look at Skybridge's filings. Listen, no one thought Anthony 2 years ago was going to buy into it, but Scaramucci's come into it. Now Skybridge has a position of over 300 and I think it's 388 or 380 million in Bitcoin, which makes it one of the larger institutional holders at this point. You have NYDIG at $1.2 billion or somewhere around there. You have Saylor at MSTR. I don't even know what billions he has now at this point. He just keeps buying every week. But with those funds that are coming in big now, and those institutions coming in big, we're going to see more of a fluctuating market. Particularly, I think at the end of the month, we're going to have portfolio rebalancing. Now that more players who need portfolio rebalancing are going to come in, we're going to have a lot of cash and carry strategies with options arbitrage coming in. So you're going to have your expiries that are coming in. With that being said, you're going to have people that are going to take profits off of Bitcoin, whether it's through rebalancing, whether it's taking profits on their treasury, because you got to remember they answer to shareholders ultimately, even if they don't want to sell in a particular situation. And then you're going to have cash and carry options arb guys who are going to, when they reap their rewards, get those rewards in Bitcoin, and they don't want the Bitcoin long exposure on their books. So they immediately rebalance that into fiat or a stable coin. So I think there's going to be a lot of interesting things happening moving forward now that all these different players are in it. And I'll end it with this. I think when you do end up seeing these rebalancing and profit takers on the table, you have the chance of seeing that money drip down into the altcoins and creating that market cycle as well.
I mean, I've been taking profits in Bitcoin and allocating to ETH. I mean, and that's clearly been the right trade over the past few weeks. So, I mean, better lucky than good, I guess. But I mean, it hasn't been significant amounts, but I mean, I felt the need to at least take some when Bitcoin hit its all-time high and then reallocate it somewhere. And ETH seemed like the logical next step because it's an easier price point to stomach. It had room to grow and it has much more underlying it than Bitcoin does in terms of momentum. So I think that, I mean, for me, that's where I think the next big opportunity is, even though we've still, as CJ is about to tell us about how Bitcoin ETH has done, but even though we've still just hit an all-time high again earlier today, I feel like that's where the next big opportunity is.
Yeah, for sure. And we will cover ETH now. But one last point on the institutional side that we're making is think about a person like Paul Tudor Jones and the trade he got in on at 13K. Like, he's up over 300%. You're telling me a smart money, legit smart money, is not going to take profit or at least hedge his strategy after being long up 300%. You know, it would be financially irresponsible not to do that. It's just the right thing to do from a trading perspective. All right, Ethereum.
Yeah,
The Bitcoin maxis were
Fired up
on Twitter this morning. Okay, so a potential double top here with the red 9. That's pretty interesting. Last night in our community, we were talking a lot about this breakout and how far this sequential setup phase could go. We were on like this green 2 or green 3. That's bullish. It usually indicates some type of continuation, even if we're looking at it from back here. And it's interesting to see that we are now topped below and have been tentatively rejected at that same resistance level. So looks like we're topped out in the interim. This is like the slingshot effect, right? This is the Bitcoin goes parabolic, and then, you know, speculators are still in the market, but Bitcoin's not going up. It's just kind of boring. So we push the money into ETH. And Monty made a good point. He wanted me to bring up Bitcoin dominance. And yeah, it's dropped off a cliff these last 3 weeks. And
yeah,
Bitcoin,
if you look at the daily chart too, it kind of coincides with ETH's run up pretty nicely. And I think that's the result of what Ryan was doing, where people are taking profits, taking a little bit off the table with Bitcoin. And ETH seems like a good money making opportunity right now. I'm definitely more bullish on ETH than I am on Bitcoin in the medium term. And it seems like it's kind of flirting with a breakout at that 1500 level. I agree, CJ, that it's kind of topped in the interim here. We got that green 9 in the reversal, but it seems like it's kind of waiting for a breakout. And I think if Bitcoin continues to consolidate and people, like you said, CJ, the traders that got in around 13K that are still content with taking money off the table here are going to look for other opportunities. And I think ETH is a great place to look.
yeah, I always love buying these breakouts. You know, I think since the trend is exhausted, since we completed the sequential setup, we might get a couple more days of consolidation, but I'll definitely be watching this 1440 level as a potential breakout trigger to entry. So
how long do you think it'll be until, if ever, that we'll see institutions buying ETH at even remotely close to the levels they've been buying of Bitcoin?
well, that's very interesting because, you know, the whole value prop is entirely different. I think the value prop of Ethereum being a platform play, sure, some institutional guys like Raoul Pal have been talking about opportunities in the altcoin market, but I don't know if we're at that corporate treasury, you know, cash reserves hedge type position. If people, specifically institutions, come in and buy ETH, it's going to have to be because of an entirely different narrative other than the store of value narrative, because that's just not Ethereum's characteristics. It's not what it's best.
No, absolutely not. That's more of a play on speculation, right? I wouldn't think that like a MicroStrategy or a Square would necessarily buy ETH. I think it would be more like a financial firm looking for that next source of alpha. And, you know, because Bitcoin, everyone's talking about how it's the most crowded trade right now, according to Bank of America, their recent research, right? So where do you go next? You go to the second most crowded trade, I guess, in crypto. You go to ETH because that has, as you guys have pointed out, the best chance for an upside breakout. And when you have all these growing platforms and protocols under it and projects that need ETH to have their engine almost, right? It's the engine of these projects. Then it just makes sense that as these projects grow, so too would ETH, no?
I think, you know, my thought process on that, Ryan, is at first, a little ways back, I was like, you know, it's going to be really hard to trickle down and make ETH kind of like, let's call it the silver of the crypto commodities world here. But what I'm starting to believe more and more personally is instead of finding that ETH killer that everybody keeps searching for, right, to dethrone ETH, save the gas fees, and all this other good stuff, I think there's enough effort being also put into the fact of projects trying to solve that by layering onto ETH. In other words, you know, we all people go ADA or Polkadot or something like that is going to kill off ETH, save everybody gas money. I think solutions, I think there's enough effort being put on solutions to layer on to ETH now to help that problem.
So
Look what Loopring is doing, right? I mean, they're the
100%.
leading solution right there.
Yep.
Sorry, CJ.
that is an amazing point, and Loopring is just another example of a project that's doing that and is creating that interoperability. Because if you guys haven't seen this, you should. I strongly recommend you watch Ari Paul's interview with Raoul Powell on Real Vision, because he's the CIO of Block Tower Capital, former endowment manager of the University of Chicago's $8 billion endowment fund. But anyways, he made a point about Bitcoin maximalists and why they should actually be thanking altcoiners. It's because all of that innovation should not come in the form of a hard fork on Bitcoin, because we don't need to alter Bitcoin's protocol layer. It's already the most secure and the most basic. And altering it for additional flexibility would just introduce the risk of implementing a new feature bug or screwing something up existing. But when you have other chains to be able to build it on, and then to be able to scale in second layers, that really introduces a lot more things to the party that you can ultimately create. So let's say if you want to do something with Bitcoin, but you can't do it because the fees are too high, well, just wrap it on Ethereum and use wrapped Bitcoin. So then it doesn't have to affect the main settlement layer of Bitcoin. I think that was a really interesting perspective that is very true. And we all become Bitcoin maximalists in bear markets because altcoins just get shredded, or at least they have historically. And in bull markets, everybody loves altcoins because they have amazing beta relative to Bitcoin.
Yeah. All right. I mean, listen, before we wrap it up, I want to actually just go around the room here. I have some shout outs to 3 various coins. If anybody has any thoughts on them, please just interrupt. One is Aave. Aave up 217% in trailing 30 days. One of those DeFi darlings, but 217% in the last 30 days. Sushi, 213% in the last 30 days. I remember this thing being 250 just 5 weeks ago. It's now up over 775. It's been pushing the $8 range. And then last, Uniswap up 226.5%. Over the last 30 days, up to 1136 right now. I mean, those 3 coins are particularly standing out to me as we talk about Ethereum. Any thoughts on those?
So this is the DeFi Perpetual Index, and as you can see, it's really been strong. Now, what I would say about DeFi is that I would not call it anything else other than highly speculative. However, those gains that you mentioned are tremendous and have been very, very influential for many people. So Aave, obviously we had Stani on the show, and just the volume of capital and the amount of people that are coming into the DeFi market is very, very interesting, and I think should not be ignored throughout the rest of this market cycle.
One thing that Dennis has been pointing out, Dennis at Trade the Chain, our head of research, he's been pointing out continuously in his daily newsletters, is that the price to sales ratio for sushi relative to uni is so much lower. And the opportunity there is so much more because of the capital rotating into sushi, because it's so much more innovative and there's so much more going on that platform. I'm not the expert here. I'm not going to try and interpret that any more than that, other than to know that Dennis, usually knows what he's talking about, and I've taken him up on that trade to see how it plays out. But I wonder how long that holds, where that price to sales ratio holds at such a lower ratio with evidence of so much more opportunity, at least for upside in sushi.
How about this, Ryan? How many people are paying attention to that, right? So that's one of those fundamental values. How many people are paying attention to that? Because if they did, the majority did, maybe there would be a lot more solidity in the upside price action of the coin.
Possibly, probably.
Yeah, and it's a herd mentality. I feel like, I mean, Monty, he's sits there and he's like a little influencer. If he said sushi stunk, price would crash immediately. All right, folks, thank you for joining us for this episode of Trade the Chain. I hope we went in depth on the big boards enough for you. Don't forget, we have the VGX Voyager episodes dropping, a two-part series that you'll see on fundamental value into VGX and Voyager. And as well, if you did like the content, please hit the like button and the subscribe button. Really helps us get the word out there. So guys, thank you very much, and we will see you all tomorrow.
Thanks, everyone.